Welcome back to At Your Service. This is a weekly podcast where we have conversations with seasoned service-based business owners. And I have an amazing guest, Larry Sprung. He has been in the financial services space for quite some time, and he is certainly an expert, and he's appeared on numerous news platforms as well. So he has quite a bit of experience and expertise behind him. So without any further ado, Larry, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Brandon. Pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. Could you, I guess, to start out, could you really give us an overview of who you are and what your line of work is?
Yeah, sure. So, like I said, first, thanks again for having me and
Of course.
to be able to share, my story with your audience. Hopefully, there's a lot of value derived from our conversation today. But who I am is first and foremost, I'm a husband to Denise. Been married for going to be 24 years, and a father to Zach and Jeremy. For me, for a very long time, family has always come first. So they are who I am. And I just happen to be in the wealth management profession. I'm the founder and wealth advisor of Mitlin Financial, a firm which I founded just going on 20 years ago in October of 2004.
Wow.
And we work with families and businesses in order to, figure out what their goals are, where they are today, what their goals and objectives are. And we work with them as a team and their team of experts to help them get from where they are today to where they want to be, and hopefully designing and developing a joyful life for them and their family or their business.
That's awesome, Larry. Yeah. And I really loved how, before you mentioned what you do for a living, you give a lot of credit to your family. And obviously, with following you on social media, it's very, very evident that you put them first. And I think it's vital in business personally.
Well, I think people want to do business with and interact and conduct business with those that they like and they're aligned with. And I think too many of us kind of, align ourselves to what we do, and that's our identity. And that's only a small portion of what I do. First and foremost is being part of my family, and I like highlighting that whenever asked that question.
Of course, Larry. That's awesome. And you've been in business for 20 years now, which is incredible. And obviously, you have a ton of expertise. But when you were first starting out, when you first launched your company, what was a big challenge that you had to overcome?
Yeah, so I think, my challenges were very similar to what most people's challenges are, right? We start a business, we have a great idea, and I was already in the profession, so I had an idea of what the business was about. I was about 6 or 7 years in, and as I say, I'm unemployable, so I decided to open my own firm. And I think we all have a similar challenge, which is, when you start out the business, you are doing everything, right? In many cases, you're responsible for things that you never thought you were going to be responsible for. And, it reminds me of a story of somebody who was a baker. She loved baking. She loved baking cakes and cookies and all the things that you and I probably love to eat. And so she opened up a bakery. And what she realized in a very short order, in about 3 or 4 years, she was very successful. But as she grew and developed, she wasn't baking anymore. She had somebody who was baking for her. She was more of the visionary for the business and, making sure that the business was running. And I think that's a challenge that a lot of us have, is kind of, morphing through that role of where we start and moving forward. So I would say one of the biggest challenges at the beginning was I was doing everything, which is not uncommon, and learning how to grow the business in a way that, would serve the families that we work with in an efficient way. Obviously, you can't be doing everything. And, whatever your business is, at some point, you're going to have to lean on other people.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it takes, obviously, a lot of trust. And for some people, it's harder to to outsource and to really rely on other people because they don't think that they will do a great job or whatever reason that might be. But you can only grow so much if it's just yourself. You kind of reach a ceiling. So,
Agreed.
yeah, no, absolutely. And obviously, I'm sure there's a lot of aspects that you enjoy about what you do. But from your perspective, why do you enjoy what you do for work?
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy doing what we're doing, and what I do on a day-to-day basis has changed a bit over the years. But
Mm,
at the heart of why I'm in this profession and why I'm in this business is really, to help families. The reason why I'm here is I grew up in a solid middle class family. My dad was a New York City school teacher,
mm,
and in her mid to late 30s, my mom was diagnosed with cancer. And
mm.
my dad was a New York City school teacher. On top of that, he had a side gig before they were called side gigs. He had a side business, and he always had like two or three things that he was doing at the same time. And when my mom got sick, it was very hard for him to juggle all the balls that he had up in the air in terms of work, taking care of her, taking care of my sister and I. And he didn't have a financial advisor. So I always felt like if he
Mm,
did, I feel like not that that would have solved my mom's issues, but I feel like it would have, possibly taken some of the burden off of him.
for
So
sure.
one of the things I love about this profession is helping people like my dad, taking that burden off their shoulders. In some cases, it's because they're going through a health event or
Mm,
trials and tribulations within their family or their own personal situation. And other times, it's really just helping the family during good times and happy times, maybe helping them send their child to college and
mhm,
come out of that debt free, or buy a second home, or work towards retirement if that's something that's of interest to them. So there's nothing, in my view, there's nothing more rewarding than that. So, and that's really what keeps me tied and juiced every day to be part of this great profession.
that's awesome, Larry. Yeah, no, it's I've 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 heard it from a handful of other people where they start a career because they've noticed something that happened with their parents, and that's really the sort of um, the real reason, as like as to why they choose that career path. So it's a very, very powerful story. Absolutely. And I really appreciate you sharing that.
Thank you.
Um, absolutely. And, wanted to also ask, obviously there's quite a few people who are in um, the wealth management space. So from your perspective, how do you stand out from your competition?
Yeah, so I'm going to answer that in two ways. I don't think we have much in the way of competition.
Love that.
Um, Once you know who we are and what we do, I think if you just look at the, generalization of wealth management or financial advisory, oh, there's a lot. But if you think about the blue ocean and the red ocean,
Hmm.
we try to go to that blue ocean as much as possible. But to answer your question, I think there are two things that really separate us, and one is tangible and something that you see and hear about every day through us, and through the stakeholders that are part of the Mitlin team, is we talk about joy quite a bit. And
Yes.
it separates us from a lot of advisors because I think a lot of people in our space, they're very number focused, which is important. You have to know your numbers,
Yeah.
as Kevin O'Leary would say. You have to
Yeah.
know your numbers for sure, and those are important. But at the end of the day, the wealth that the families we're working with, or the businesses that we're working with, that they're accumulating, at the end of the day, that money is really should be used as a tool, or looked
Mhm.
as a tool that can be used to find joy in their life. And
Definitely.
there are a lot of advisors and wealth folks that talk about, oh well, if you don't buy the coffee, or you don't go on the vacation, and you put that money in a Roth IRA, after 30 years you'll have an extra $125,000. And that might that might be true, but to bring it back to the story I told you earlier, my mom and dad were saving for retirement. They were saving for their financial future. My dad has reached that. He's in his 70s now and he's in retirement. My mom didn't. So what we try to impart upon people is there's got to be a fine balance between what numbers you need later on, but also finding joy in the moment. And I think that's something that really separates us from a lot of the other folks out there. And I would say, secondly, which this is not as easily seen, not as tangible. You might see it talked about in our Google reviews, for example, though.
Mhm.
A lot of advisors are very transactional. They
Mm.
work with a family, they manage their money, they help them. But we are really, we become part of the family. We really ingrain ourselves in the family, and we have a level of service here that is second to none. And I'll share a story with you. We had a family that we started working with where the husband is actually having a health event, the wife is fine. They had 3, maybe 4 different advisors that were managing their financial lives, and they were getting, really no help other than just simply managing their assets and reporting to them on a regular basis. So we were introduced to them. We told them, we walked through our process with families and how we become almost like a personalized CFO to them and their family.
Mhm.
And because of the relationship that they had with the family that referred them, they ended up moving everything over to us, and we consolidated everything in one place. And we've been acting as that CFO. And I can't tell you how many times the wife has called up and spoken to our team and said, you know, initially I wasn't sure how this was going to work because I had never encountered a financial advisor or a financial advisor firm that talked about and worked with families like you said you did.
Mm.
But I am so comfortable now, number one, and so happy because you've taken a huge burden off of my plate, because now I know we're being properly taken care of, our assets are being watched, and when I have to make financial decisions, I have somebody that I can work with and call for assistance. And I think that piece sometimes isn't easily understood, and
Mhm.
sometimes maybe not even believed. It's
Yeah.
unbelievable when we meet with initial families, but time and time again, after working with families, after meeting them and deciding to move forward, we hear that type of response, that the level of service is unbelievable. And I think that's a big differentiator. I'll give you an example. Yesterday, my wife and I went to one of our clients. They were celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary.
Wow.
We went to their house with a 50th anniversary balloon. We also brought them an electronic picture frame where
Wow.
we contacted their daughter, and she sent us about 25 photos from the highlights of their marriage, and we preloaded it on there, and we sat with them, plugged it in, and went through the photos. And it's stuff like that. We really care, and it's stuff like that that I think really differentiates us from a lot of other folks out there.
Yeah, that is absolutely incredible, and I love that personalized approach too, because you could easily have bought them uh, a gift card or anything else that was very very sort of generic, but to really go that extra mile and not just invest money into something, but also invest time and energy, um, it speaks volumes, obviously, to how you do business.
Yeah, thank you.
Of course, Larry. And I would also say that you're quite charitable as well, and that's one of the reasons why I think we stay in touch. I think it's super important to be able to um, be charity minded as well. So I would also say that that makes you really stand out personally from my perspective.
Yeah, I appreciate that. We actually, through the end of this year, we have a book drive going on. We're collecting books at our office for the book fairies.
Nice.
One of our core values at the firm is charitable, being
Yes.
charitable, and it's not something we just want to talk about. We actually want to do. So, if any of your listeners have books that are gently used at their house and they are in the local area, they could come by and drop them off. Or there's a Amazon wish list that the Book Fairies puts out, and they can just order a book and have it sent directly to them. So it's something that's very meaningful to us, and I think we're very grateful about what we do and how we can do it and what we can do each day, and we want to give it back, like you said, and I think that's important.
Definitely, Larry. That's just incredible. Appreciate you sharing that. Um, okay, so a few more questions here. So, who is your ideal customer and referral source?
Yeah. So, I mean, our ideal family is somebody who we enjoy working with, and they enjoy working with us. We're not like firms out there where we have this, hard minimum where,
Sure.
if you don't have these assets, we're not working with you. We meet with anybody and we will make a determination if it's a good fit,
Hmm.
and not only a good fit for us, but for them. Because there are certain situations where people are looking for certain services, certain advice and guidance that, may not be in our wheelhouse or be a good fit for us. So in those cases, we tell them that we are not necessarily a good fit for them. So, typically we're working with people who are either in the accumulation phase or nearing retirement, and they're looking to, devise and finally put pen to paper of putting a plan together. Maybe they've started or looking to start accumulating assets real, quickly, and they just don't have a game plan in place and they haven't had the time. And the
Hmm.
earlier we could start putting that together with them, the better,
Right.
because the younger they are, the better, because as they age and as their lives become more complicated, such as buying a house, getting married, having kids, most likely they're not going to have the time, effort, and energy to be able to invest in this and do it. So the earlier we could start with them, the better. But what I would say to you is, if somebody's listening and they're thinking that they might need an advisor, might need assistance, they go onto our website, book a 15-minute "Is there a fit" call. We have a quick conversation, and if it makes sense for us to go further from there, we will. If not, we might be able to provide them with some resources. And most of the new potential families that we're working with typically are coming in either directly through our website, through
Mm,
our social media channel, or through our existing families. Accountants and attorneys are predominantly, the avenues that our new relationships are coming through.
got it. Got it. Got it. Awesome, Larry. Yeah. Yeah. Obviously, it has to be a fit for the client as well as the person providing the service. So, very, very well said. Um, Additionally, for you, obviously now you launched in 2004. So, what has been your secret to really growing your business?
Yeah, I mean, I think, initially I created a very nice lifestyle practice, and it's
Hmm.
it's only been in the last 4 or 5 years that we've really decided to, um, go into super growth mode. But I think some of the important things, which we've already touched on to some degree, maybe on the surface a bit, but I think if you want to have any successful business, I think there's a couple things you need to do. One is, you have to, whether you're thinking about it or not, you have to enter and conduct the business like you're going to have an exit at some point, whether it's going to be a sale, whether it's going to be a transition to employees, whether it's going to be an acquisition, whatever the case may be. You have to build the practice, the business, like there's going to be an exit at some point, because
Mm,
that will allow you to make decisions in the right way that benefit you, that benefit your team, and benefit the enterprise value of the organization. And two, I think you have to, as a founder, you have to figure out, how to hire,
mm,
and how to find your unique ability, what you're good at, what you get energy from doing each day, and everything else, figure out how to outsource. And it doesn't mean that you're taking the bad stuff that you don't like and giving it to somebody else, because the stuff that you don't find joy in, that's not in your unique ability,
mhm.
typically is in somebody else's unique ability, and they derive joy from that. So if you can find those right people, align those things that are not joyful to you, and find
Mm.
somebody who it is joyful for, and have them, take that and own that. I think those two things are, excellent ingredients to success for the long term.
Absolutely, Larry. Yeah, I do think that it's important to think about the exit in mind. This way, you start working on the business versus working in the business, which I see a
Right.
lot of people do. So very, very well said. Last question relating to your line of work. Do you think it's important? So do you have a business partner, and do you think it's important to have a business partner?
So I do not. I've been, the sole owner and the sole founder of the practice.
Hmm.
So that's the technical. I'll give you the technical answer, and then I'll give you the non-technical answer. So on paper, no partner, right? No other outside money or interests. But my wife is very involved in the business. She's our director of marketing, and
Hmm.
although that may not be the case on paper, there are a lot of things that we bounce off each other that, again, there are certain things that are in my unique ability and there are others that are in her unique ability. So to answer your question, a lot of those conversations that, financial partners would have within a business or owners within a business would have, she and I have quite often. So I think that there's a challenge and a curse. There's a blessing and a curse in that, right? There are some benefits to having a partner because you have a second set of eyes and ears and somebody to potentially bounce ideas off and have those, maybe tough conversations with before you make a final decision. But at the same
Hmm.
time, as you probably are aware and your listeners might be aware, there are challenges, because in terms of marriage, divorce is very common, and
Mm.
it's probably even more prevalent, if not the same, in businesses. So there's a challenge there. So I think you have to be very careful and you have to understand what the pros and cons are of bringing on a partner before you do that.
Yeah, absolutely, Larry. I don't think, obviously, you're a great example. You don't necessarily need a partner, at least on paper, right? If you know how to sort of outsource and lead and really bring on people to help your workload.
And you have to learn. You
Yeah,
have to learn. It's not something the skills I have today were not the skills I had in 2004. It's been an evolutionary process of learning and dedication. And you have to be willing to do that and get better, as James Clear would say, get 1% better every day.
absolutely. Absolutely. Atomic Habits. Excellent book.
Right.
Um, awesome, Larry. So if you weren't in your current line of work, what else could you see yourself doing?
Yeah, that's a great question, Brandon. I never think about that because to me, there's never a plan B. I only have
Of
plan A
course.
for this. So I've never put much thought into that. But my initial inclination, and it might sound like a cop out, is I'm not sure what line of work I would be in, but I assure you I would be I'd have some type of entrepreneurial venture. I would have some kind of business line because I think at the end of the day, it's just a matter of finding something that you align with and you love, and
Right.
then finding a pain point and building a business around it. So I don't know exactly what that would be,
Hmm.
but I assure you it would be some other entrepreneurial venture. It wouldn't be something where I would be an employee of working with a company. I think it would be more of, me founding another area of work.
Got it. Okay. Awesome, Larry. And what is something that nobody knows about you or that very few people know about you?
Yeah, so I mean, I think one of the things that not a lot of people know about me is that I've played. A lot of people know I'm a hockey guy.
Yes.
I've played hockey. I watch hockey. My kids play hockey, but there are a lesser subset of those folks that know that I've had the opportunity, I believe, on 3 occasions now to play as a guest player with the Israeli national hockey team, which being that we're recording this on October 7th, it's kind of ironic that you asked me that question, and this is my answer. But yeah, I had the opportunity to do that 3 times. The most meaningful of those times was we played Duquesne University and the Pittsburgh Penguin alumni
Wow.
after the mass shooting in Pittsburgh
Mm.
before, I think it was 2019, before the pandemic. So that's something that's resonated with me and stays with me. And it's something that a lot of people don't know about, but I
Yeah.
guess they will now.
Yeah. Absolutely, Larry. Appreciate you sharing that. And so two last questions. This one I'm very excited specifically to ask you about because it's one of your core values. What is one way that you like to give back?
Oh, really? Any way I can. I mean, listen, I think there's plenty of ways to give back. Obviously donating money to charitable causes is an easy way. I think a little bit more difficult is actually rolling your sleeves up and getting involved with a charity.
For sure.
And I think they're both great ways, and it depends on what you want to do and how you want to do it. And I get a lot of I get a lot of juice from both of them. And, sometimes I can't make an event, so I'll just make a financial donation just because I can't be there in person and
For sure.
support an event. But if I can be there, I certainly also get a lot of enjoyment out of getting my hands dirty or attending an event because there's a lot of joy to be had there, helping other
Absolutely.
people.
Absolutely, Larry. I don't think there's, it's you are absolutely one of the most charity-minded um, people that I've ever met, and
I
it's
appreciate that.
super, super evident. Absolutely. And then the very last question, where can people go to reach out and to connect with you?
Yeah, so I think the easiest and the best place for people to reach out and connect with me and to kind of, understand and see this message of joy in their, with their own eyes is we have created, I released a book in 2023 called Financial Planning Made Personal. What did you
Mm,
do today that brought you joy? And we decided to create a joy journal, which we're making available to everybody. You can just go to mitlin.us/joy journal, and that will bring you to a special website, special landing page where you can download that joy journal, use it for yourself, and hopefully get a lot of use and ask yourself each day, what did I do today that brought me joy? And obviously every other way to connect with us comes off of that page, so you get two for one. You get the joy journal and you can connect with us from there as well.
that is super, super special, Larry. Really appreciate you sharing that. This wasn't a question I had in mind until now, but um, did you come up with that quote about joy, or did you hear it from somebody else?
So we did not hear well, it is trademarked now.
Nice.
We trademarked it. It was my wife birthed that question, and it's been an interesting ride. Since creating that question and asking people that, we've created shirts and hats, etc. And one of the stories I tell very often is I wear the shirt quite often around airports, traveling out and about, and the number of people that stop me and talk to me about that question or take a picture of it or want to know what it's from is amazing. And one of the funniest stories was I was online at Disney with my family, and a Disney cast member, as I got up to the line, she looks at me and goes, "I ate a bag of Hershey Kisses." And I looked at her and I was like, "Great, good for you. I mean,
Yeah.
thank you for sharing." And then I looked at my wife and kids. I'm like, "What the heck is this about?" And my kids looked at me in the eye and said, "Hey, Dad, dope. Look at your shirt. She's answering the question." So my wife came up with the question, and it's taken on a life of its own, which has been fantastic.
I love that, Larry. That's really, really special. And you know, greatly, greatly appreciate our conversation. I appreciate you sharing more about who you are and what you do for work. So it was really, really a pleasure to chat with you today.
Yeah, thanks, Brandon. It's always a pleasure to